Edric. 18 years after Iris's death, Edric sees her again. Not in body or soul, but rather a reuniting of something long stolen. Kit, obsessively loyal as he was, told the king in passing of his meeting with the slummer who had saved his enforcer from a resistance silencer. The heir spoke vaguely of her alluring appearance, the dripping silver hair she greeted him at the door with, but more intriguing, her burning blue eyes. The king, upon hearing each unnecessary detail, thought nothing of the girl, who would likely die in his first trial. Having no clear memory of his mother, Kit saw little more than a pretty face before him. Any portraits of the late queen were locked away or in the possession of the king, who rarely displayed his lost love. But for the few times Edric allowed his son to admire them, he remembered nothing of note to connect the queen and this contestant. But Kit had never memorized the eyes of Iris Moira quite like his father had. The first time Edric sees his daughter, since she was an embarrassment in his arms, is when she confidently takes a seat at his table. Each contestant has filed into the throne room before His and Her Majesty make their grand entrance. The sight of Payden's eyes, Iris's eyes, nearly brings the king to his knees. But with a knack for deceit comes the gift of composure. Edric forces a stoic strength into his voice, addresses his contestants, and sits mere feet from the forgotten princess. The king has not given thought to her, or the disgrace she had temporarily brought to his kingdom in 18 years. But with her blue eyes locked on his, that flood of hatred carves a destructive path to his heart once again. She is more than everything Edric despises. She is his weakness. Payden Grey. An ordinary sitting at his table and pretending that she is not. His ordinary. Sitting here as though she is not meant to be dead. So, this is the girl who saved you in the alley, the king says to his enforcer, disguising every bit of bite in his voice with feigned intrigue. But when the ordinary looks up at her father, he finds a loathing there to rival his own. I must say, I've never met a psychic before. Your powers are intriguing. A sham, a lie, a disgrace to his name. These are all things Edric could have said in that moment, but he knows how to play his cards. He will not show his hand any more than she will. Instead, the king will watch her squirm until the moment he finally puts an end to her pathetic, ordinary life. A rehearsed explanation leaves Payden's lips at a calculated pace. Not too fast, this would make it seem like the lie it is, but not entirely slow, because why would she need such time to think on her own ability? It's admirable, really. Her commitment to passing as an elite, even becoming the lowliest of them, is a challenge. Every word, every reasoning is so deliberate that the king might have believed her if those eyes weren't so incriminating. Kai seems unworried by his inability to sense her power, or perhaps the enforcer is simply too distracted to question her reasonings further. But Edric says nothing of the truth he knows, because this ordinary will die in his trials, and he need not raise a finger to do it. This time, he will not make the same mistake. This time, he will watch her die. What a shame. To have survived this whole time for nothing. Nothing. Just like the daughter before him. Like the powerless child who killed his wife. The waste of elite power. Payden mentions the man who raised her, forcing the king to further fortify his unbothered expression. Edric believed the surname Grey died with the man whose growing uprise became a pawn to satiate the king's appetite for power. Adam Grey was meant to help eradicate the remaining ordinaries, albeit unknowingly. But the healer's life was swiftly ended after he stumbled upon a secret meant solely for kings. Only the forgotten princess, having been raised by the former resistance leader, was not a detail Edric was informed of. Still, it feels good to blame another man for the weakness she is. For that reason, Edric happily confirms what she already believes to be true. Ah, yes. Your father, Adam Grey, was a great healer. A very educated man. To her credit, the girl feigned surprise at the king's memory. You knew my father? The king answers her question, though the both of them already know the answer. Yes, I did. He would come to the palace during fever season to help our own court physicians when there were too many patients to attend to. And that is how Edric became aware of Adam's plan to raise up a resistance. His mind reader gathered the information while briefly passing in the halls. It was hardly shocking to discover the healer's agenda, considering his continual refusal of the bribe offered to him. The king could not buy Adam's silence about the legitimacy of this ordinary disease, but as a resident of the slums, he seemingly posed little threat. Only he raised the king's daughter into something that mockingly resembled an elite. Edric rises from the table, his eyes on those that once belonged to his wife. I will watch her die, just as I have my wife, and I will mar her heart, just as she has mine. Callum does not need the king to vocalize the rage that roars within his head. He can read it easily enough, like a scribbled scroll rolled out before him. Edric's anger is an all-consuming ailment, one the mind reader has grown to understand better than most. And he knows now the reasoning behind his wrath.
She was a baby. I could not bring myself to kill her.
The king's eyes flash. And now an ordinary sleeps in my castle, competes in my trials as if she is worthy.
Forgive me, Majesty.
Callum hangs his head solemnly, folding sweaty palms behind his back.
I should have disposed of her, like you asked. But I've kept an eye on her for years. Ever since working with Adam and the Resistance, she was never meant to find her way back to the castle.
But she saved my son. Edric spits, angered still by the enforcer's inability to defend himself against a silencer. And now, Payden Grey is here to taunt me with her mother's eyes. The mind reader's throat bobs.
I know.
I want her dead.
She will be,
Callum reassures.
The trials will likely kill her, but before they do, we can use her.
This intrigues the king. I'm listening.
The Resistance is ready. This is what you have been waiting for all these years.
The mind reader tips his blonde head.
We only need someone to help us find a way into the bowl after the third trial. Finally, you will have a sea of ordinaries in one place.
The tunnels. Edric muses. You want her to lead the resistance through the tunnels. Callum allows a rare smile.
She only needs someone to show them to her.
The king knows to whom he refers. With a plan in place, Edric leaves his mind reader with a twisted sort of glee at Peyton Gray's arrival. He would get to use her, get his revenge, before eventually watching her die. The king could think of little more that would bring him such enjoyment.
Chapter 60. Kai. I'm swallowed by a wave of bodies. People pour from the throne room, all pushing their way down the hall. I shove against the human current, my movements sluggish beneath the weight of so many powers. The court parades towards the gardens to enjoy refreshments and swap gossip while the second ceremony en route commences. Most elites here despise the idea of the royals setting foot in the slums, let alone conducting another wedding there. Another wedding. Because I couldn't stop the first. I lean against a wall in the emptying throne room. Petals float from the canopy of flowers above to fall gracefully towards the dais beneath. That is where they stood, exchanging vows, while I was foolish enough to think I could stop it. I was too late. She is a wife. She is a queen. I sink to the floor, letting my back slide down the smooth wall. What would I have done? Stolen my brother's bride away? I was so plagued by the decision between duty and desire that I became stuck somewhere in the middle as a begrudging bystander. And now, I've lost her. I was too late. Her life will pass by mine, and yet we will never stop to live within each other's. She is a tragedy I will be forced to relive every waking moment. I am her enforcer, and she, my queen. Anything more is now in our past, and anything less is likely to come. I mourn her on the floor of the throne room. I am lost without the purpose she planted in me. For her, I was better. I was a mere shadow of the beast my father made me. Now, I fear what I will become when bowing at her feet. I would have kneeled for her 100 times over, not for duty, but for devotion. She has become my mission once again, this time a queen I'm meant to protect. But it is my brother who will have her. In his life. In his heart. In his bed. My fist meets the wall beside me. A shock of pain shoots up my arm as the smooth surface crumbles beneath my knuckles. I curse under my breath. Then again, loud enough to offer some relief to my sudden rage. White dust drifts to the marble floor when I pull my aching hand from the wall. Chunks of debris fall from the fist-sized hole I've made. It seems that my anger may have latched on to a nearby brawny without my permission. I'm dangerous this way. Lethal when stripped so bare. Devastation lives just beneath my skin, and I am aching. She's gone. I've lost her. I am lost without her. My head hangs in hands that will soon forget the shape of her. Beasts don't get the beauty.
Chapter 61. Peyton. The dress ripples around my pumping legs. I cling to fistfuls of fabric, trying to free my restricted steps. The hall passes in a blur, sunlight streaming from the many windows I race past. None of the Imperials lining the wall so much as twist their heads at my mad dash and disheveled appearance. I'm panting by the time I skid to a stop before the front doors. They are sealed shut, framed on either side by a dozen Imperials. Several eyes dip behind those white masks, scrutinizing their queen. I bite back the vicious retort on my tongue at the sudden realization of my bare legs. Dropping the hem of my skirt, I let it flutter to my feet before declaring, "Open the doors." The Imperials obey my command, and I try not to look overly shocked by this. I bound down the stone steps that descend into the courtyard, sparing only a glance at the decorated coaches awaiting me. Kit stands beside a particularly gilded one, where he converses quietly with Easel while surrounded by a swarm of Imperials. He, too, has changed into something less extravagant, though a ceremonial sword swings at his side. "Kit!" His head whips in my direction to find the queen rushing towards him. My leg slips in and out of the tear that climbs up my dress, only amplifying my disheveled appearance. Kit even allows concern to crinkle his brow at the sight of me. "What happened?" "I figured it out," I pant. "Callum was your father's mind reader, and I know his fatals were hidden from you, so when the resistance leader showed up after that third purging trial, you didn't know who he was." "Slow down, Peyton," Kit urges, his body tense. "What are you trying to say?" I blow out a breath. "Callum worked for your father. The whole resistance was a sham, and—" My mouth grows worryingly dry. "And he is my father." Uttering the words aloud sounds like a death sentence. I watch them land on Kit, watch every emotion ripple over his face. Confusion, disbelief, worry. We stand there, staring blankly at each other until Kit finally sputters. "What?" My eyes drift closed so I don't have to watch his world shatter beneath my words. "Your mother, Iris, she had an affair with Callum but passed the child off as your father's. When I was born an ordinary, the king wanted me killed, but his mind reader placed me on Adam Gray's doorstep instead. The whole thing was covered up and—" "My mother died over 20 years ago," Kit counters. "The records were forged." The words tumble out in a rush. "The kingdom hadn't seen Queen Iris since your birth. The king kept her hidden away, paranoid for her safety. So when she became pregnant with me, Ilya never knew." Kit's gaze grows vacant. "And then she died?" "Yes," I murmur. "And the king was able to cover up my existence by telling the kingdom that Iris died giving birth to you, not an ordinary. That is what you and Ilya have believed for decades." "And the staff—" "You said so yourself," I shake my head. "They have been keeping secrets for decades." A stifling silence smothers us. "I know it sounds crazy, but Callum admitted it." "We are half-siblings," Kit finally blurts. I blink at my husband, then down at the ring on my finger. The thought had somehow never crossed my mind until this very moment, and now I feel as though I may be sick. "Holy shit," I breathe, because there is little more to say. We were just bound in holy matrimony less than a single hour ago, only to find out that our lives have been knit together long before then. Kit's hands are suddenly gripping my arms tightly. That glimpse of paranoia is back in his gaze. "Did he say anything about me?" "What?" I shake my head. "Kit, he has been controlling you. Callum is a duel, just like you are. Everything he asks, you do." Kit only stares at me, processing this information before my eyes. "Think about it," I urge. "You never wanted to marry me, and yet you did. Callum wanted you to, and I'm afraid to find out why. Don't you see? He is using you." The doors swing open with a thud. My dagger is clenched in Callum's fist as he slowly descends those stone steps. I stiffen, feeling fear course through me at the sight of a man meant to be my father. My head is still spinning, my chest still hollow after what I learned. Only a handful of minutes separates me from the life that was and the one I've now been thrown into. Everything I thought I knew is a lie, and everything I didn't know is even more hurtful. Kit drops his hands from my arms before taking a step forward. Imperials dash to their king's side at the scene unfolding, but Kit waves them off. I watch Callum slowly descend the stairs with a calming smile spreading across his face. "Kit, let's not do anything rash," Peyton is clearly confused. My skin flushes with anger. Kit meets my father at the bottom of the steps, and for a long moment, they do nothing but hold each other's gaze. There is a single terrifying moment in which I fear they may smile, perhaps take a bow. It dawns on me then that I could have just misjudged everything. That is, until Callum's body goes rigid. It's eerie, watching one's face drain of all color. "Don't do this, Kit." A sword sings as it's pulled from a sheath. Kit's responding growl echoes through the courtyard. "Get out of my head." His blade sinks into my father's chest. I blink, and the world spins to a sudden jolting stop. Blood gushes from the wound in Callum's chest as his king callously yanks the blade from his body. I watch those blue eyes widen on Kit, then flicker with fleeting life. My hand lifts towards the jaw I've dropped above. This is not the first time I've lost a father. This is not even the first time I've lost one to a sword through his chest, or an Azar brother at the other end of that blade. But this death is different. Watching this man die feels like a relief. Callum is the reason for my true father's death, and this is the retribution I've searched for since Adam Gray died in my arms. The blood of every resistance member is on this fatal's hands, and he deserves to meet this brutal end. Kit staggers back, letting Callum slump to the stone steps. Blood drips from the king's sword in a way that makes him suddenly resemble his enforcer. I step carefully beside Callum's crumpled body, ensuring the growing puddle of blood oozing down the stairs does not stain my pure attire. His blue gaze falls sluggishly to mine as I pry my dagger from his fingertips. Then I lean in, letting his dwindling power pluck words from my mind. "This isn't a goodbye, Father. Only a good way to say bye until we meet again. Because I will haunt you in every lifetime. A shadow of the woman you loved, trapped in the body of an ordinary you hate." I smile, his eyes widened as though the torture has already begun. "Until then, Father." His blood drips from the blade of my dagger, and I wipe it off on his tunic before standing. As soon as I have slipped the knife into its sheath on my thigh, Kit is turning me towards him with a heavy hand on my shoulder. "Peyton, did he say anything about me? About my father?" I open my mouth. "What the hell happened?" My gaze lifts to the top of the stone steps where the enforcer scrutinizes the scene below him. King, queen, dead body. Kit's grip on my arm slips away beneath his brother's stare. "The better question is, where the hell have you been?" Kai joins us beside the cascade of blood. His raw knuckles don't go unnoticed. "Sorry I missed the ceremony." His eyes flick to me. "Congratulations. Now what the hell is going on?" The king turns to me, urging a quick explanation from my mouth. I recount my interaction with Callum, all that I discovered, and all he told me. A dark shadow crosses Kai's face when I speak of what the prior king had done, but it's a shade of recognition I see when mentioning Callum's true identity. "He always looked so familiar," Kai mutters. "I must have seen him pass me in the halls growing up, and at that battle in the bowl, I knew I recognized him. I should have—" "It's not your fault," Kit reassures. "He was manipulating all of us. Peyton thinks he was a duel, and it makes perfect sense." Kai's attention falls to me. "A duel?" "I think he was a controller and a mind reader. Look," I say in a rush. "I know it's rare, but whatever he says always goes. Kit had no intention of marrying me until Callum said so." "She's right." Kit shakes his head. "He always had this pull, like I couldn't help but do what he wished. Either way," he sighs, "Callum was a danger, a liability. So I did what I had to do." Kai blinks. "You killed him?" I stiffen. "He thought it was me." "I did," Kit says simply. "Like I said, he was a danger." Kai stares at his brother, even as Easel approaches timidly. I had nearly forgotten our wide-eyed audience. Your Majesty, I must insist that we head to Lute for the second ceremony. My stomach churns at the sudden reminder of what we have learned. No, we can't possibly... Holy shit. I glance over at Kai to find his features arranged in equal parts shock and repulsion. Took you long enough, I sigh. You're fucking related, Kai spews. There is something like awe in his voice. Because this is hope. This is a way out of a marriage neither of us wants. You can't possibly go through with this ceremony. Majesties, if I may, Hazel cuts in. This wedding must go on. Kai almost laughs. Like hell it will. Hazel, I begin sensibly. We are half-siblings and you are already married. Firmly, he stands his ground. If the kingdom so much as catches a whiff of annulment rumors, they will dash every bit of progress that has been made towards this united Ilia. Your marriage is a symbol, and if you rip that away, the people will never accept these new rules, even if they are meant to save them. He takes a deep breath. This kingdom, and your relationship with every surrounding one, rides on this marriage. An Ilia who welcomes ordinaries is who Dor, Tando, and Isram will trade with. And for now, Payton is our greatest asset. We need more time. Kai doesn't even take a moment to consider this. No, we will find another way. He's right. Kit's murmur has the enforcer shaking his head at the sky. The kingdom needs to see a united front for them to follow. His gaze meets mine. What do you think? I don't know what to think, I blurt. I just found out my mother was a queen and then watched another father bleed out in front of me. I let out a quivering breath. I need time to think about this. On my own. Kit nods. That is only fair. All this time, Kai mutters. You had a claim to the throne. Hazel tilts his head, that shock of mint hair slipping over his shoulder. It is weak as a bastard, but yes, I suppose Payton does have a claim. Kit shifts on his feet. We will need to find the true records, discover what really happened. Callum said they had been sealed away somewhere, I say dully. I feel nothing. All my life, I have been nothing. I barely survived to discover my true heritage. It's steeped in secrets and buried further in disloyalty, but it was always there, pumping in my veins. The blood of a queen flows through me, an ordinary from the slums. The juxtaposition is jarring enough to almost make me laugh. So much of my life was ascertained in a collection of short-lived moments. I didn't even have the time to process one before another revelation rolled in. So in this slow moment, I allow myself a single breath. One crisis at a time. Let's get to Lute, then figure the rest of our lives out.
Chapter 62. Kai. Their knees are touching again. Except this time there are wedding vows wedged between them. The gold band on Kit's finger catches the light with every jostle of the coach. Just like our last parade onto Lute, we ride over the uneven cobblestones with the sun weighing heavy on our shoulders. No roof resides above our heads, allowing us full view of the awaiting crowd gathered on the long market street. Collectively, all of 4 words have passed between us, consisting of, "Are we there yet?" An impatient Jack sits beside me, clearly tired of our bumpy crawl through the slums and likely regretting not riding with Andy. Pathetically, I'm thankful he is here, if only to ensure my anger cools before my mouth opens. I can do little else but seethe in the absurdity of this all. Within the last conversation shared between us, I discovered that Payton is the daughter of the late Queen Iris and my father's mind reader, whose blood is currently being scrubbed from the castle's front steps. She is an ordinary, born from the rawest of power. And Kit is her half-brother. For the first time since I was a boy, I fight to keep my mask of indifference from slipping off. As nauseating as this news is, it may just be Peyton's way out. My hope is selfish, tainted by the desire to be hers alone. But Kit is not the only one committed to protecting this kingdom. Ilya is our home. And if the only way to save it means Peyton plays wife in name alone, then let's hope it doesn't come to that. The coach rumbles to a stop in the center of this crowded street. Emerald banners hang between crumbling buildings, secured there by crawlers offered a shilling for their labor. They display both Ilya's swirling crest and the Azur's shield high above hundreds of starving mundanes beneath. We step into a makeshift circle, decorated by multiple pedestals connected with thick ribbon. A pretty barrier the people know better than to cross. My Imperials, now far more attentive with their resumed training, place themselves around the perimeter as an extra precaution. It all seems rather pointless when looking at it from this angle. All I see before me are hungry, hopeless elites who behave themselves for the promise of stale bread, coin, or shelter. How did such a mighty kingdom fall? It was not like this at the beginning of Father's reign. I have read what histories date before the purging, even those immediately after. No. This deterioration of Ilya began when King Edric's hatred for ordinaries became an obsession. Right before his eyes, the kingdom began to crumble and still. He cared only for the ratification of weakness. That desire is what brought Ilya to its knees. Kit reaches for Peyton's hand. She hesitates. I turn away. I melt into the circle of Imperials and begin a slow pace behind them. By the time I look back at the royal couple, they stand on a large platform before the people, arms interlocked at the elbows. The wooden riser beneath their feet is draped in emerald carpet and adorned with a scholar. This makeshift ceremony so starkly contrasts with the one held before the court. Dripping with roses and gilded finery, the castle perfectly put into perspective the slum's poverty, and also its priorities. People of Ilya, we gather here today to join Kit Azur, King and Savior of Ilya, and the Lady Peyton Grey in holy matrimony. Bear witness to their union and abide by the power granted unto them. The rickety man drones on, reminding me of a simpler time when I despised my studies with the scholars. But this is no long-winded lecture. These are the words that bind their souls together. Peyton's hands now rest within my brother's, lifted between them to display the shining rings they share. Both the king and queen look distantly detached from the ceremony they are standing within. I pull my arms behind a stiff back, widening my stance and planting my feet so they don't carry me away from this unbearable display. No, I am the enforcer. I am now an enforcer to the both of them. It is duty that roots me to the spot, forcing my gaze to grow vacant as vows are exchanged and fates are bound. Kit stands at Peyton's side, holding the hand of his bride. I roll my neck. It is harder to hate this situation when my brother is half of it. I loved him more than anyone, and until a clumsy thief ran into me all those months ago, I never believed I could love anyone as much. There is little more I want than to see Kit happy, and that little more happens to now be his wife. People of Ilya, I present unto you Peyton Azur, your undoubted queen consort. The crown Peyton retrieved from the sanctuary of souls is placed onto her gleaming hair. She is the very portrait of a queen, somehow more formidable now than the day we met. The silver savior has morphed into a fearsome creature, dressed in finery and armed with the future of her making. A sudden shift in the crowd has me stepping forward, poised to strike if a threat presents itself. I squint, watching this ripple of movement flow through the hundreds of cramped bodies. My gaze flicks between each side of the packed street as I assess every wrinkle in the sea of people. Even the scholar has stopped his babbling, leaving Payton and Kit to swivel their heads in confusion. "Silver Savior!" The shout has my Imperials beginning to close in around the platform, but I raise a staying hand. That title was said with reverence. And when the tremble of bodies grows close enough, I watch knees bend before their queen. Hundreds of Ilians kneel atop the cobblestone they once shared with Payton Gray. I stare as the people of these slums show their devotion for the girl who escaped and has now returned to save them. I glance up at Payton and the shock she fights to suppress. Her chest heaves as she takes in the respect they so readily give her. It is as though the people can smell that royal blood within her veins, are unable to help but bow before those destined to rule. But they know not of her heritage, only that she was, and forever will be, one of them. This is Payton's home, and they welcome her back a queen. Kit stands stoically beside Payton as she lifts her chin, crown piercing the air. Echoed murmurs of the Silver Savior lap around the edge of the ceremony circle. A queen now stands where a thief once had, brave, benevolent, and brutal. She stands victorious. The scholar's final decree is a startled afterthought. "And your king, Kit Azur, savior of Ilia. May their union bring prosperity to our kingdom and greatness to our histories." Payton Gray. No. Azur. And just like that, I am jolted from this remarkable moment and tossed right back into my bleak reality. The king and queen step from the platform. Their enforcer follows.
Chapter 63. Payton. My first evening as queen is spent watching the sun sink towards the garden below my balcony. I blow gently on my steaming cup of tea, legs curled snugly beneath me in the plush chair. I've hardly been past those stunning glass doors since gawking at my chamber for the first time. Now, with nothing to do but sit within my thoughts, I decided it best to weather the storm inside my mind with a calming view. Rows of color fan out beneath me, framing each cobblestone path and stretching towards that fading sun. Birds chirp softly at the approaching dusk as shadows begin their slow crawl across the earth. I take a sip of tea and shut my eyes as the warmth of it spills into my stomach. This has the potential to be the most peaceful moment I've had since being sent to the purging trials, until the flash of my wedding ring reminds me of the wreckage that is my life. I'm still reeling hours later from every revelation ripping my past apart. Royal blood flows through my veins, and yet it has coated Imperial's whips and drenched the late king's sword. Edric Azur's blatant hatred for me was a fire that sparked the day I was born in Ordinary, and I have been fighting to survive since. I stare down into my rippling teacup. A forgotten princess stares back, abandoned for power and hated for surviving despite it. I blow out a breath while my mind struggles to connect all the pieces of my fragmented life. Iris Moira lived within this very castle, smothering her love for a man she could not have. They hid their affections like a thorny wall of roses, both beautiful but dangerous. Today, I watched the man my mother loved in secret bleed out before me. I hadn't felt grief at his death. No, I felt a shiver of ghostly similarities between my mother and my father's doomed love. Their notes, their stolen love, it is Kai's and my life mirrored. And if the enforcer will someday meet the fate Callum has... I cut the thought off before it has time to fester. Perhaps Iris loved them both, the king and his mind reader. Perhaps in very different ways. I think of Kit and the blood we share. I think desperately of a way to undo this binding of our souls, one that does not rip the growth we have made for this kingdom out at the root. My chest tightens, the teacup rattling in my hand atop its saucer. How am I going to find a way out of this? A shifting shadow below catches my eye. I set my cup aside and squint into the growing darkness. The figure walks smoothly to a stop beneath my balcony and calls, "Guess who, little psychic?" My heart stutters, yet I somehow manage to keep my voice steady. Someone who has already forgotten my new title? Kai's dry chuckle lifts into the breeze as I stand to lean over the railing. "Majesty, I have many titles for you. Not all are appropriate to shout." I roll my eyes. I can't help but leap at the distraction he offers from my spiraling thoughts. "What do you want, cocky bastard?" "You forgot the 'my' in front of that endearing nickname." "You shouldn't be here," I challenge, "as my enforcer." His tone echoes my own. "Then command me to go. Don't tempt me." "That would only be fair." I stare down at his shadowed form. "You're deflecting." "Maybe I'm stalling." My eyes narrow. "And why is that?" "Call it a desperate attempt to steal more time with you." I hide my smile with a duck of my head. "Do you intend to stand beneath my balcony all night, then?" "No." His gray gaze has faded away in the darkness, but I can feel it on me all the same. "We're going to visit your mother's chamber."
Chapter 64. Kai. Gail places the plate of sticky buns between us, warm as the smile on her face.
"Look at you boys, back in my kitchen and begging for food."
Gail says this with so much endearment that she nearly chokes. She presses a hand to her heart.
"Oh, how I missed this."
Kit nudges my shoulder with his own, looking happier than I thought possible after a day like this one. "Just like old times." My teeth sink into the honeyed dough. I nod, swallow. "It would be more like old times if I threw you over this table."
"Absolutely not,"
Gail warns.
"The both of you are much too big for that now. My kitchen can't take it."
We smile at her scolding before she adds,
"Where's Peyton?"
Kit takes a breath. Then he clutches his chest and coughs. "Is our company not enough for you anymore, Gail?"
"Don't be smart with me, Kit."
She plops her hands on full hips.
"Forgive me for asking where your wife is on your wedding night."
I stiffen.
"I just didn't expect you to be spending the evening in my kitchen. Although..."
The cook smiles sweetly at Kit, having already forgotten he is now her king.
"Kitty, sweetie, if you wanted to use that nifty jewel ability of yours to wash my floors like you used to, I would not be opposed."
I'm grateful for the swift change of subject. It seems Kit is as well, because he chuckles, sounding relieved. "Don't forget that Kai Pie here can do that for you too." I drop the sticky bun onto my plate. "But you hate when I borrow your power." The words fall from my honeyed lips, though they still manage to taste bitter. I would like to blame the accusation in my voice on the very upsetting day I've had, but in truth, I would simply like to know where the brother went who so desperately wished to fight his own battles. The one who ached to enter the purging trials if only to prove the strength father never let him use. He was tutored. I was trained. And Kit had always dreamed of being a victor. His earnest gaze slides to mine. That was before I truly realized what a great team we make." He smiles softly. "You are my strength. I am your control. We are matchless." I brace my arms against the rickety table. "And when did you finally figure that?" "When I discovered my need for you was greater than my wish to be you." This shouldn't startle me, but somehow it does. Why would you ever want that, kid? Father ensured that the worst parts of himself live within me. So we will be so much better than him. He holds my stare fiercely. You and I, we will create our own legacy, a greatness that Father could have never dreamed of. I smile for him because I feel as though I should. He looks happy, relieved even, as though uttering the words has lifted a weight from his chest. Though this tender moment only reminds me of the drastically different one I had witnessed hours ago. I've managed to bite my tongue until now, seeing through Kit's eager attempts to avoid the topic. But unfortunately, I love my brother too much to let his evasion of the subject and its accompanying awkwardness still my tongue. Kit, I start slow. We should talk about what happened in the courtyard with Callum and Gale. Kit's eyes flash a warning. These sticky buns are delicious. Did you do something different? I stare back at my brother, not caring that Gale is in the room for a conversation long overdue. But I understand his secrecy on the matter, having watched him inform the Imperials that word of Callum's death was to be contained. Few of the staff know of the brutality their king committed mere hours ago, and Gale is certainly not one of them. She does not even know what we have now learned.
Well, I added an extra spice in this batch.
She wipes her hands on the stained apron around her waist.
This is how your mother always liked her sticky buns, Kai. She ate her fill that first year of marriage to the king. I was planning to bring one up to the tower for her.
A pregnancy craving? Kit asks in the hope of remaining on this topic. Gale's face falters.
Perhaps.
I stare at the woman who raised me when the queen could not. The paling of her face is odd. She would have taken care of my mother when she was pregnant with me. My heart sinks, heavy with a sudden realization. Peyton was born 18 years ago, the daughter of Queen Iris and my father's mind reader. And yet, I am a year older than she. My throat goes dry. This is the first quiet moment I have stolen all day. Until now, I have hardly spared a thought to fit the pieces of Peyton's birth together. And there are still several missing. I am missing. Gale is talking idly with Kit. I can't seem to make out what she is saying through the ringing in my ears. When were you going to tell us the truth of Queen Iris's death? The cook gapes at my words.
Kai,
I mean, my sudden laugh sounds crazed. Kit just married a lost princess, and he didn't even know until Father's mind reader filled us in on the details.
what? You know?
Gale chokes. Kit stands from the table at the same moment I do. Kai, what the hell are you? I'm going to find answers, I breathe. We are drowning in secrets, Kit. Your wife isn't the only one who was lied to. Gale's hand is pressed to her heart, the look of regret on her face the last thing I see before striding out the doors. Kit follows in a flurry of confusion. His steps echo behind me. Brother, just tell me what is going on, please. I turn only slightly. I will, but only after I've ensured I'm right. Then I'm off to steal away my queen. Chapter 65. Kai. The sun is long set before I'm finally rapping my knuckles against Kit's study door. This night is never ending, Peyton huffs. She spins the ring on her thumb incessantly, gaze far from the grooved door before us. Her mind is likely where mine has drifted off to after everything we discovered. But I forced myself to wander back to my brother as promised, just as I always have over the years. I swallow. I'm taking a page out of your book, little psychic. Peyton's mouth opens, but before she can answer, Come in. Kit's voice is muffled behind the slab of wood I now push open. He sits at his desk, lamplight flooding the room in a flickering glow. Parchment sprawls the span of chipped wood in front of him, and I am consistently astonished how every sheet is marred with hasty handwriting. But what captures my attention is the ceremonial sword leaning against the fireplace. Gone is the blood of Peyton's father, replaced with the silver shine. The king ushers me in with a wave of his inky hand. His skin is pale, stark against the indigo veins that crawl from his temple. My eyes narrow at the striking sickness crowding his features. Bloodshot eyes and gaunt cheeks meet my scrutiny. I've never seen him like this. Never noticed how unwell he truly looked. The maids. They have been concealing his illness as best they could. I stride into the glowing room, and comfortingly, Kit smiles at my company. But the shadow stepping behind me makes Kit falter slightly. Peyton, I didn't expect to see you tonight. I force a deep breath into my lungs. It is their wedding night. If it weren't for recent discoveries, together is precisely what they would have been. The thought has something sinister awakening within me, but I stamp it down, right alongside the jealousy that festers there. I didn't either, Peyton states truthfully. But Guy wanted your wife here when we finally discuss what happened today. The words surprise even me, mostly because they weren't meant to be biting. I can feel Peyton's gaze crash into me as Kit's does the same. Slowly, the king gathers his stack of scribbled parchment and shoves it into the drawers beside him. I'd rather not speak of it. You, of all people, should understand that, brother. The words are honed masterfully. They cut deep enough to make me momentarily rethink this approaching conversation. I stare at my brother, seeing once again that sliver of cunningness he holds so close. There was once a time when I would have considered myself to be the calculated brother and he the caring one. But it feels as though a lifetime has been wedged between those characteristics, and I'm no longer sure who is deserving of them. Kit, I say slowly, you killed someone today. He leans back in his chair. I did what I needed to do. That was your first kill. It was? Peyton steps forward, shaking her head. Of course it was. I'm fine, Kai, the king murmurs. It was a necessity. Now can we please stop? I brace my palms on his desk. The brother I know would be in shambles after driving a sword through a man's chest. Well, he grew up, Kit fires back. He shoves the bite in his voice aside. I'm a king now, and everything I do is for the greatness of this kingdom. I study the tight paleness of his features. Tell me what is going on, Kit. There is something you're not telling me. Peyton clears her throat. I should let you two work this out. No, I order. My eyes don't stray from the king. You're an Azar now. This is exactly where you should be. Kit rubs a hand behind his neck, just as he has always done since we were boys. It tells of his anxiety. Brother, you know what happened. Peyton discovered the truth of Callum's role and how he has been manipulating me to do his bidding. He was a threat that I put an end to. I shake my head, a twinge of disappointment trickling through me. I think back to that panicked moment I walked into, Callum dead on the steps and Peyton spewing her theories. Don't you think I would have known if he was a duel? Kit is quick to nod towards Peyton. You've been wrong before about one's abilities. Besides, how do you know he wasn't controlling you to ignore the true extent of his power? It's a well-rehearsed rebuttal, And if I didn't know my brother better, I might have believed him. So, Callum's death had nothing to do with those letters in Iris's jewelry box. Kit says nothing. Payden pounces on the familiar speculation. You'd already read those notes, hadn't you? You recognized Callum's handwriting and were worried that you might be a bastard. She takes a breath, realization crashing over her like a wave. That is why you asked if he said anything about you. My brother tenses. I meant to dispose of those before giving you the jewelry box, but I got distracted. A sad sort of understanding seeps onto my features. If he was a loose end that needed to be taken care of, I would have done that for you. That is why I am here, to save you from brutality. And what if I don't want to be saved? Kit counters. There is a certain intensity in his eyes that startles me. What if I want to save you for once? Save us? My head tilts. Kit, if you were there, he begins slowly, and Callum stepped between me and your beloved Payden with that dagger, who would you have protected? Something shifts between us at those words. The tension grows taut. I glance over at Payden. She scrutinizes the situation. I fight against the understanding that begins to dawn. You would choose her? Kit whispers. You've already chosen her. Over and over again. This is ridiculous, Kit. The king stands, nearly toppling the chair in such haste. It should only ever be us. You and me. Always. His gaze grows wild. You remember that, don't you? Before she came into our lives and left it in shambles? Payden's voice is small. What are you talking about, Kit? But he doesn't speak to her. No, his words are directed only at me. She ruined us, Kai. Everything went wrong in our lives the second she stepped into it. Hell! His laugh is ragged. Even the second she was born, Payden managed to begin destroying this family. My chest tightens painfully. The crazed look Kit wears is one I recognize. Father, the king, would wear the same one when speaking of ordinaries. It was what he wished to destroy more than anything. I know now that his hatred stemmed from the death of his wife and the birth of an ordinary girl. But Kit's aversion for Payden does not resemble his father's. Edric sought out power. Kit aches for companionship, brotherhood. Me alone. Don't you see, brother? His exasperation hangs in the air between us. She killed our father. My mother. She is the wedge that will drive us apart. I can see the shadow of jealousy on his face. The same darkness that falls over him when Payden is near. But I realize now that it is not envy for the silver savior on display, but envy of her. She has me, and Kit hates it. I step away from his desk, my head shaking. She killed your father, not mine. Kit's face falls before I even land the final blow. Payden is more your family than I am.
Chapter 66. Payden. Kai escorts me through the halls, ignoring every wandering eye. After he walked from the gardens to meet me outside my chamber door, we set a quick pace between the imperial-lined walls. The urgency in his steps has me biting back every question pelting my weary mind. But the enforcer is on another one of his missions, and I am simply relieved to not be on the other side of it again. So I let him lead me past each tall window and the fading sun beyond. We turn down a corridor I don't recognize before stopping at the threshold of a seemingly unsuspecting door. I glance skeptically at my guide. This is it? He turns the handle, stepping almost cautiously into the space. Odd how it's just a regular room after all those years of wondering what was inside. My feet falter. It feels as though I've disturbed a piece of the past, intruded on a stranger I now call mother in title alone. I scan Queen Iris's chamber slowly, taking in the four-poster bed hiding beneath a layer of neglect. Dust blankets every piece of furniture, the desk, vanity, and bookshelves all warmed with white grime. Father never let anyone in here. Kai's words only emphasize the clear signs of isolation. Always claimed that he wanted to preserve it for her. My gaze drifts to the shelves once again, noting the toppled books and wedged papers between them. On her nightstand, dust collects around the shape of a rectangle at its center. This is where Kit got her jewelry box from, I murmur. Kai nods. During your first trial, I found him in here holding it. He must have been looking through some of her old things. I halt my slow pacing at the end of an untouched bed. If he looked through that jewelry box, he would have seen those notes from Callum. Thoroughly distracted, Kai only manages an absent-minded, With a sigh, I drop the subject. His mind is far from my speculations. So, what are we doing here exactly? You don't want to see your mother's chamber? I shrug. Maybe if she actually felt like my mother, but I run a hand across that dusty quilt hugging the bed. This woman feels like a stranger. Kai nods slowly, sympathetically, before he spews the real reason he dragged me here. You mentioned Callum was saying something about the true records being sealed away. I glance around the abandoned room. And you figured they might be in here, where no one was permitted to enter. Nothing gets past you, little psychic. His following huff is laced with humor. Actually, if I am right, then something did get past you. This offends me, greatly. Just spit it out, Azar. Kai pokes around the desk, pulling at stubborn drawers. I am a year older than you, Pei. If my father married Mila after you were born, you would have been a year old already, I breathe. His smirk is infuriating. Don't be an ass. I join him at the desk with a lethal look. My mind has been a little occupied today. And mine hasn't? I almost laugh. I got married. And I have been mourning you since the day we left that poppy field. My lips part slightly. I stare at him, watching every ripple of emotion cross his unmasked face. He sighs out a steadying breath. The slow death of us started the day my brother slid that ring onto your finger, Kai murmurs. And I have had nothing but you on my mind for weeks. He reaches for me before thinking better of it. We will always be inevitable, Pei. But in this lifetime, we are doomed. Today was evidence of that. He swallows. It's best we move on. A long moment passes between us before he turns back towards the desk, as though he hasn't just crushed my heart in his calloused palm. The ache in my chest is only amplified by the truth in his words. We are ruined. Kai clears his throat. I blink away the emotion stinging my eyes. Attempting to let the tension fall from between us, I ask, You think the records are in this desk? I peek over his shoulder at the fingerprints he's scattered across the dusty wood. Kai tugs at a rattling handle to no avail. It's locked, he mutters. That hardly deters him from yanking it open with ease and stating, Brawny, he tosses his head towards the door. Down the hall. Within a matter of moments, he's pulling 3 weathered scrolls from the depths of that locked door and laying them on the desk. One speaks of birth, the other of death, the final of marriage. Each is a decree with secrets. We lean in, skimming the swirling dark ink. My eyes flick between the 3 pages, head spinning. Frustrated, I try to fit Callum's admittances between the scrawled words. 18 years ago, a daughter was born to the king. 18 years ago, Queen Iris died in childbirth. I was the daughter, an ordinary the king disposed of. Embarrassed and angry, he hid the truth of his wife's death, claiming to the kingdom that she passed during the birth of his heir. Queens were isolated for safety, so it was a believable lie. I drag a finger across the marriage license. This says nothing of a child, only that Edric Azar and Mila Rowe were wed. Kai runs a hand through his tousled hair. There is no record of my birth. We must be missing something, I offer distantly. Maybe there is another scroll. Maybe, Kai cuts in. I blink, and he is pushing away from the desk to stride across the room. Or maybe we should go right to the source. The Dowager Queen stares blankly at the scrolls. I want answers, Mother, Kai urges. Mila's long black hair is streaked with silver. Her once beautiful gray eyes are sunken and red. The cot she lies on is stiff, the room around us stuffy. She looks frail in the West Wing's sickly hue, as though the rickety tower itself seeps life from her veins. I fidget in my seat. The Queen hardly knows me, and now I've come to sit beside her deathbed, disrupting the little peace she had. I know the truth about Iris's death, Kai says slowly, pointing to one of the scrolls. How the king married you to help cover it up. But what I don't understand is where I fit into it. His gaze is piercing. If Iris truly died 2 years after Kit's birth, then how was I born only a year younger than him? The Queen's gaze shifts to her son, nearly as hollow as the words she finally coughs out. The king didn't tell me the whole story until he decided he loved me. At the beginning, it was my duty to marry Edric. At least, that is what my father told me. As an advisor to the king, he handed me over a solution to a problem I didn't know. She lifts a hand to her son's cheek. Despite my father's persuasion, I didn't think the king would want to marry me so suddenly, because I already had a son with another. Her voice grows hushed. But I was wrong. It was you he wanted. I watched the words hit Kai hard enough to nearly crack his stony facade. He had a silencer sense your power, she whispers. The Queen grips Kai's hand, a cough rattling her chest before continuing. The king wanted a strong spare, and my baby boy was extraordinary. Edric wanted him as his own. Nothing. Kai says nothing. I drop my gaze to the fidgeting fingers in my lap. After believing an ordinary child was his, it is no wonder the king wanted only the strongest of elites for himself. I was an embarrassment, a mistake, and Kai, the most powerful elite, would replace me. Edric told the kingdom he had mourned his late wife for 3 months and married me in the next. The Queen chokes on her words. He was very convincing, your father. Told the people that he didn't have the heart to announce Iris's death until he knew his new queen and son were safe. So he wanted a solution to his problem, Kai says evenly. His voice is dangerously calm. The king was embarrassed by an ordinary that wasn't even his, so he claimed the strongest elite he could find as his own. Forgive me, Kai, his mother whimpers. The castle was sworn to secrecy, and I was never to tell a soul the truth. So you were raised believing what everyone else in the kingdom did. Kai scoffs. But I was never his. My power was not Edric's doing. His eyes lift to the woman who resembles him so closely. So whose doing is it? Her throat bobs. A man I loved dearly, many years ago. Kai looks away, letting her words hang in the air. I can see the hurt he so desperately tries to hide beneath that mask of anger. The king rewrote history, he seethes, and made me his puppet. Mila lets out a ragged cough that might have been the start of an apology. When she catches her breath, face splotchy and red, she rasps, He was always too harsh on you, and I'm so sorry for that. I was his in name, and still, he hated that I wasn't his in blood, Kai mutters. That is why he never loved me, isn't it? Why he pushed me until I broke. All because my power was never truly his. Rage simmers deep in my gut for the boy who was forced into this fate by chance alone. Everything he has suffered, every mask forced upon his face and weapon pushed into his hand, was never intended for him. Kai Azar is not an Azar at all. He was a powerful solution. I'm sorry you were thrown into this mess, the Queen attempts. At first, we were only meant to cover up how an ordinary killed the late Queen. Her gray eyes slide to mine. Kai scoffs before biting out. All this time, you knew? I had my suspicions, the Queen coughs. Edric was not himself after seeing her for the first time. My cheeks heat. I was not the king's ordinary. At her skeptical look, I let the truth tumble out. I was his mind reader's daughter. A heavy silence bears down on us, one that Kai graciously lifts from our shoulders. The king always kept his fatals hidden. We never saw them. The silencer was the only one I ever met while trying to glean information about the resistance, which I know now was a sham. His laugh is humorless. Though it sounds like Damien met me long before then, when he told the king of my power. The Queen's eyes widen on me. If that is true, then the king died thinking that I was his greatest failure? His ordinary, his weakness, his death. Even powerless, I killed him. A slight smile tugs at my lips. I hope he saw his daughter's face, the ordinary he despised, as I drove that sword into his chest. I'll live with it.